Going back to the book, man. After my 2 months at the clinic, my enlistment term was, in fact, coming to an end. It didn't take a genius to see it. I'd end up behind a desk, so I chose not to re-enlist. I love the Corps, so it hurt. Before joining the Corps, I had 3 concussions, mononucleosis, and an operation on my right knee. When I mustered out 4 years later, I'd added 2 operations on my right hand, a right rotator cuff operation, a 4th concussion from an RPG, a dislocated shoulder, and 2 herniated discs from clumsily lifting the dead and wounded. 1 vertebrae had given way in Ganjagal when I picked up an Askar and slipped in the bloody mud under him. I have no idea when the 2nd vertebrae went out during the battle. I had that nick in my arm from a bullet or shrapnel, but that hadn't been anything. I was in decent shape for construction work, I figured. After the PTSD clinic, I returned to Kentucky. It was the winter of 2010, and I warmed myself up by slipping back into hard drinking each night. I hadn't seen an active duty grunt in months. Fabio and Rodriguez Chavez were due to receive the Navy crosses at the Marine Corps base in Quantico, but I couldn't get enough time off to fly back east. Were you working construction at this point?
Yeah.
And your boys are getting Navy crosses. You can't get time off from work. Swenson and I had been recommended for the Medal of Honor. We knew though that the award was usually downgraded upon review. When I drank, which was too much, I'd laugh at the absurdity. I had screwed up big time. My achievement was losing my brothers. The Marine Corps would come to its senses, and I'd never hear another word from another devil dog. I had no idea what was in front of me, and I didn't care. I couldn't take a walk, turn on the TV, or read a book to distract my mind. The emptiness of my life was the dark all around me, with nothing to see in any direction. 4 years ago, I'd left the farm for an adventure and a new beginning. The Corps had shaped me, and I had arrived in Afghanistan, confident I'd do well in combat. Sure enough, up at Monty, I had emerged as the young gun. Every day brought fun and danger against the backdrop of spectacular mountains. It was fun stuff, shooting thousands of rounds, not losing many people, and seeing the damage you inflicted. There was no weapon I couldn't handle, and my team trusted me to get them out of any hot spot my cockiness put us in. But when it counted most, I wasn't with them. They weren't trained to do my job. Gunny Johnson didn't spend every day behind a 240. Staff Sergeant Kennefick wasn't comfortable with weapons or angles of fire. Doc Layton wasn't a fighter, and Lieutenant Johnson didn't adjust fire missions. We aren't worried. We know you'll get us out if anything goes bad, Meyer. Well, I didn't, Lieutenant. I was a load of worthless shit, not there when you needed me. Around 3 a.m, I pulled my truck into the driveway of a shop owned by my high school friend Derek Yates and cut the engine. I turned on the cab light and fished out my cell phone. It wasn't right to burden my dad, but I wanted to connect one last time with someone. I pecked out a text message to my friends Ann and Toby. They had known me since I was a toddler, but they didn't know me that well, did they? Here I was, back where I had started, with an aluminum bracelet with 2 names on each wrist. That's what I had done with my life. Lost 4 brothers. I can't do it anymore. I typed. I reached into the glove compartment where I kept my Glock. I always kept a full magazine with a round chambered in the pistol. A Glock doesn't have a safety. You pull the trigger, and the weapon fires. I stuck the gun to my head and squeezed the trigger. Click. Nothing. Nada. No round in the chamber. As you can imagine, I sat there quite sobered up and in double shock. Suicide is terminal self-revulsion. I was mixed up, but I knew my team would be disappointed in me. Staff Sergeant Kennefick would give me hell, which is where I would be. Bad ending. That was not going to happen. But who had unloaded my pistol? Right on the spot, I knew who had done it. Have I ever talked to that person about it? No. I put away the pistol and drove home. That night, I experienced no sudden change of direction in my life. I didn't know where I was headed in the future, but I knew quitting wasn't right. Not that night. Not ever.
You know, I had never told anybody about that night until it was published in the book. And I just I just felt like it was important to the story because I didn't want people to read the story and then just think that it was all okay when I came home. I didn't want to give them that perspective, and there's so many guys out there that write these books of the crazy shit that they do, but they never talk about what
that crazy shit does to them.
Yeah, they never talk about that, and so what happens is people read that and they're like, holy shit, that's crazy. I could never do that because I deal with problems. And it's like, yeah, we all do. And, I had to put it into, I wanted people to know that I'm just a human. I'm no different than them. And I felt like that I couldn't put in the if you want to call it good stuff and not put in the bad stuff.
I'm sure there's some psychologist that could figure something out about this, but you got to the point, right? And you made the decision clearly.
Yeah.
And you came out the other side by the grace of God and whoever knew you well enough to figure out that they needed to make sure you didn't have a loaded gun. But that's a message for anybody that feels like they're in the same situation you felt like you were in, which is that there's not going to get any better. Is like, okay, come out the other side, man. Come out the other side. And it was like, like you said, it's not a sudden change in direction, but you knew that you couldn't quit.
I always like to say that, sometimes you find yourself in the middle of nowhere, and sometimes in the middle of nowhere you find yourself. And, I had no idea where my life was going. I made a deal with myself, I had sat there and I had said, if I'm going to keep living this life this way, rack it back and get over with. But I said, if I ever put the car in drive, I'll never look back. And I sat there, I'm not going to lie to you, I'd probably sit there for 5-10 minutes. And I had done it at my buddy's shop because I knew he'd be there at 8 o'clock in the morning and he could just find me. And I put it in drive and I never looked back, and I'm lucky, I'm fortunate that the gun didn't go off, right? But I think that, you always got to hit that rock bottom, I think that, and that was, for me, that was it. That was the rock bottom. And it changed it.